Alright, so I am going to be making the Lullaby Line Snap PJs with the footed version as well as the cuffed version. So I have both of my sets cut out. I have the cuffed version here, the footed version here, and I have the cuffed version here. And I also have all of my pieces. So I have the bottom of the feet, I have the top of the feet, I have the gussets cut out for both, I have the sleeves cut out for both, as well as the snap placket piece and the sleeve and feet cuffs. You are going to need some fusible knit interfacing for the snap placket. It's just a very, very thin, stretchy interfacing that's going to help reinforce your snap placket so that your snaps don't rip through the fabric. So let's get started. The very first thing that you're going to do, it's going to be the same on everything except for the cuff. So unless I tell you differently, just assume that they're both done the same way. So the very first thing you're going to do is you're going to sew or serge across the shoulder seams on both pieces. So now that you have serged your shoulder seams, now it's time to do the snap placket that goes around. So you're going to iron your fusible knit interfacing on your placket piece. I like to go the full width of the snap placket. It just gives it extra sturdiness rather than just one little thin layer on half of it. So now you're going to fold your snap placket in half. You can iron it if you want. And then you're going to start here at this corner piece. You're going to go around the neckline and all the way down the front to the bottom of the feet. And when you go around the neckline, make sure you stretch it a little bit so that it doesn't stick up and it's not awkward and weird. Now that you have serged or sewn on the placket, you are going to iron it, and then you're going to top stitch all the way along the edge, all the way up around the neck until you get to the edge where you started here. Now that we have sewn all the way around the neckline and all the way down the front, we've top stitched it so it looks very nice. Now we're going to do this side here. So with the other piece of the placket that you have, you're going to turn it inside out. So this is the right side, this is the wrong side, and you're going to sew or serge along this edge here so that when you flip it, it's a nice finished edge and it doesn't have any ragged pieces. So you're going to line up this nice finished edge along the top up here so that when you flip it, it's going to be nice and finished without any weirdness. And then you're going to sew right sides together, go all the way down, and then you're going to flip it, iron it, and top stitch. And you do not need to stretch this at all because this doesn't need any stretch. You're just going to lay it flat with the fabric. Quick tip, if you serge your ends, make sure you leave a tail because then you're going to weave it back through the stitching along here, pull it out, and then you'll pull it down and it leaves a nice finished edge here without having all these little strings that will stick up and tickle your baby or irritate them. So now you're going to lay it flat and you're going to top stitch. Okay, now that you have you've ironed, sewn, top stitched the front placket and the side placket here, you're going to lay them on top of each other and line them up nice and flat, and then you're going to go along and you're going to pin it, and then you're going to treat this as one piece now for both versions of this. You're going to treat it as one piece, and then at the very end we'll put on the snaps when we take the pins out. And then don't worry about the little footed option right now. You can see it's just kind of sticking off. We're going to trim this so that it'll be the same rounded when we put on the footed piece. Okay, now this step is only for the footed option. Okay, so I've already pinned one here and I'm going to show you how to do it. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the top of the foot and you're going to take this flat edge and you're going to line up the centers like this, and then you are going to pin it on to the front of your piece. You're going to line up your edge here, this corner of the flat piece with the bottom of the curve here, like this. And you can use as many pins or as few pins as you want. Usually I just do the end pieces and the center, but I also did it like this so you can see you can use plenty of pins if you need to. If you are using a serger, please do not serge over your needles or your pins, because you will get a nick inside on your blade of your serger, and then you'll get snags when it's cutting. So just make sure you either pull it back to where it's not in the way of the blade, or remove it completely when you go to serge it. Okay, here is what the tops of the foot piece looks like for the feet, the footed version I mean, when you've sewn it on. So now this next step is what you do for both versions. Now we're going to attach the sleeves. So you lay your sleeper out flat with the right side facing up, and then just like we did the curve on that one, you're going to do the same thing with the sleeve. So you put right sides together, and you're going to line up the center with this shoulder seam right here, and then you're going to pin all the way around on here, and then you're going to serge or sew it on both sides. I just wanted to show you real quick how you're going to do a concave on a convex curve, pinning them together so that it lays properly. So when you do it, you don't try to stretch this as you go. You just lay them flat on top of each other like that, and then you pin, and then you move down a little ways, lining up the two edges like that, and then put another pin in, and then you get to the ends and you line up the ends like that, and then you pin. So then it's all nice and pinned, and it's way less confusing, and it's not complicated if you do it that way. So start in the center and work your way out, then start in the center and work your way out the other direction. Now that we have our sleeve sewn on, now we're going to attach the cuffs before we sew up the side seams for this. So you're going to take your cuff material. If you have a directional fabric, make sure that when you lay it down and flip it, then the pattern is still going the same way, but this is solid pink, so it doesn't matter. So you're just going to lay it down on the sleeve. You can stretch it if you want to where it'll make a cuff like this, where it's a little bit tighter around the wrist. But just remember that these are small sleeves, so you don't want to make it too tight, because then you won't be able to get their little hands in and out. So just keep that in mind when you are sewing on the cuffs on both of your sleeves. Now that we have our sleeves sewn on, the little cuffs on the sleeves, you're going to turn the whole sleeper right side out, and then you're going to line up the edges, and make sure you pin at the important parts to where the seams line up. You're going to pin here at the edge of the wrist where the cuff is. Then you're going to pin at this seam, at the armpit seam, once in the middle, and once at the end, because you don't want it shifting around and one piece ending up being longer than the other, because then you have to seam rip, and that's no fun. So you're going to do that with both pieces, and then you're going to sew or serge all the way from the wrist all the way down to the end of the leg. And you're going to do that with both pieces and with both versions, even the footed version if you're doing that. And again, just a reminder, leave the tail if you've serged. At the bottom you don't have to leave the tail, you can just clip it. But oh man, I dropped it. But leave the tail on the cuffs so that when you weave the ends in, it leaves a nice finished edge, so you don't have all these little strings sticking up on the end, because that looks ugly. This next step is where you're going to differ between the footed sleepers and the cuffed sleepers. So if you're going to do the cuffed ones, what you need to do is, now that you've sewn the side seam all the way down, you're going to open it up with the legs and lay them flat, open like this, and then you're going to take your cuff pieces, just like you did with the sleeves, right sides together, and then you're going to serge along this edge so that it leaves a nice seam, and you're going to do that with both of your legs. This next step is the same for both versions. You are now going to attach the gusset. So the gusset is this little piece right here in the crotch that gives a little bit extra room for the diapers, or if you cloth diaper, that's great because it gives an extra little bit of space in there. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your gusset piece, again, turn your sleeper right side out, and then put your gusset face down. An easy way to find the center is just fold it in half and line that up with the very tip right there, and that is your center. So you're going to, just like we did with the sleeves, you're going to follow the curve. So start in the center, and you're going to go one way, and then line up this edge a little bit here, pin it, go down a little bit more, and then you're going to pin it, and then you're going to do the same with this side. And then once you've fully pinned this on, then you are going to sew along this edge here, and then we're going to sew the two legs together. So that's what it's going to look like. Now that you have the gusset sewn along the front piece, now we're going to do the legs. So you turn it right sides together, you line it up, and just like we did before, you're going to find the center of the gusset, and you're going to line it up with the center of the back between the legs, and then you're going to, just like we did on the sleeves, you're going to do it, pin a little bit, move it, pin a little bit, move it, pin a little bit, and then you're going to line up the important parts. So on the cuffs, you line up the ends, the seam, and then your gusset will look like this. So it's all pinned up along the edges, like this. So you're just going to sew it all the way down through the inseam. And then you're going to do the same thing with the footed ones. You're going to line it up, sew along the inside, and then we will finish. Okay, so if you are making the cuffed version, after you've finished that seam, then all you have left to do are the snaps. But we're going to set this one aside, and I'm going to show you how to do the footed ones. Now this looks scary, but I promise it's not. You are going to use a ton of pins when you do this. So the sole of the foot has one end that's more narrow, it's tapered. This is the back. The wider side is the front. So what you're going to do is you're going to line up with your sleeper right side out. You're going to take the little flap. This is the front of the foot right here. So you're going to find the front of your, the sole of your foot, and you're going to line it up there in the center, and then you're just going to start pinning. Okay, so you're going to do the front one in the center, then you're going to turn the sleeper around, find the center of the sole, and then you're going to line it up with the center of the back flat part right here, like this. And you're going to pin that, and then you're just going to slowly work your way around. I like to start at the front of the foot, because if there's going to be any puckers or anything, I'd rather have it in the back, not in the front where you're going to see it the most. So just line it up flat, and then just slowly start working your way around and adding a pin. Then move a little bit farther, add another pin. And then when you get to these two seams, this top of the foot, this is pretty thick, so you want the seam laying forward, otherwise it's going to have a weird bunch. So when you get here, you're going to pin the seam allowance forward like that. And then when you get to this one, this side seam, your seam should always face the back. So with this one, we're going to pin it towards the back of the sleeper. Just makes everything lay nicer when you do it that way. So then you go around, and then this is the center back pin, so we're just going to add one more right here. And then we're going to go back up to the front again, and now we're going to go the other direction. So line it up, add another pin, and then you're just going to keep going. You can push these pins forward so that you can have some more room. They're all going to kind of overlap and crisscross in here, and that's fine. Don't panic. So again, seam folds forward on the top of the foot. And then now, since we're on the other side, this seam is going to go that way, so it faces the back of the sleeper. Add a pin there. And then we're going to add one more right here. So now you have this. So as you sew, you should start on one of the flat sides. It doesn't matter which side you start on. I usually start over on this side when I put it in my machine, so that, again, if there's any puckers or any straight edges or whatever, it's on the back of the foot, not on the front of the foot. So then you're going to push, when you're sewing on this side, you're going to push all the pins that are facing this way farther in, like that, so that you have room. So then, as you sew along, you get to here, pull the pin out, sew, pull the pin out, sew. You don't need to go fast, it's not a race. You just go nice and slow, and as you go, you're going to turn it as you go around to the front of the foot, and then once you're onto this side of the foot, all of these pins, you're going to push back like this, so they're easier to pull out when you're going along. And so then you're going to sew around both of your feet, and then I'll show you the last step. Once you have sewn all the way around, you need to double check, go all the way around the edges, make sure you haven't missed any spots, otherwise you'll have a gap and then there'll be a hole. But once you've done that, we are ready for the next step. So turn your sleeper right side out, and we will do the snaps, and that's the very last step, and then your sleepers are done. So here it is, right side turned out, and you can see that it is nice and smooth. So there's the little top of the foot, and there's the sides. So the very last step that you need to do is the snaps. So the easiest way to do this, to make sure everything lines up, you don't have weird puckers, or this part is pulled tight and this part is loose, is you're going to start down here at the bottom, because this is already flush and this is flat, and it's even. So what you're going to do is you're going to move your little pins, and then you need to measure 2.5 inches from about here-ish or so, and you're going to measure all the way up to the top, and you need to have one snap that ends about right there. So depending on what size you have, is going to determine how many snaps, and if it's 2.5 inches or if it needs to be spaced out a little bit different. So if we were going to do 2.5, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then this is 3 down here at the bottom, but this is already sewn, so we don't need to add another snap here. You can if you really want to. If you wanted to add one more snap there, you could, but again, you don't really have to. So we're going to start right at this seam down here and measure 3 up, and then you can use a marking pencil, you can use the washable ink, something like that. I'm just going to use a pen because this is going to be covered by the snap. Once the snap is actually on there, you're not going to be able to see it because it's going to be covered by the cap. So then you're just going to measure, and you're going to mark 2.5 inches all the way up your sleeper here. Okay, so if you've never done snaps before, there is the cap, there's the female socket, and then there's the male stud. And then these go together, and you have to have a cap for both pieces. So the way that I like to do it is I have on this bottom piece, I have the female socket on it, and then the male is on the top here like this, so that they snap together. Make sure that you pay attention when you put these on, because you don't want to accidentally have a stud on a stud. You need to have a stud to a socket so that they will actually snap together. Otherwise you'll have to try to take it out, and that's a pain. So to make sure that everything is lined up, just like you had it pinned, you're going to remove the pins so that you have room to work here. I like to line up the edge of the snap placket with this seam right here, because then these I know are the same width, so that the snap, if it's in the center here, it's not like it's way over here on this one or way close to this side. It's going to be nice and lined up. So overlap your things however you like to do it, it's up to you. And then you're going to hold it together, and then you're going to take your awl, and wherever you marked it, you're going to go through both pieces at the same time. And then I move mine back and forth a little bit just to try to make the hole a little bit easier. So then you're going to pull the fabric separate and leave the top piece on your awl and pull the back piece off. So you can see you have a hole there. So then you're going to take one of your caps, you're going to find the hole, stick it in the hole use your fingernails, get the top through it like that. And then you're going to take your socket piece, push it down, and then get your snap pliers. Cap goes in the larger side, the smaller one is for the inside piece. Put it on there and just squeeze real hard, and that smashes the pointy piece down so that your snap is secured. Now you're going to do the same thing with the other side. Pull that out, put a cap on, then you're going to take one of the sockets, put it on this way, and then press. And now you have a completed snap. And then as you go up your sleeper, snap these as you go so that everything lays flat. So that's the first snap, and then you're going to go to your next mark, and you're going to do the exact same thing. Now make sure when you put on this front one that you don't put the cap in this way, because otherwise your stud will be on top. You need to make sure that it's facing in so that the two snaps snap together. Okay, so go ahead and do that all the way up, and then I will show you when it's done. And we are finished. Wow. All the snaps are done on both of them. You have the footed sleeper and you have the cuffed. And I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope it was helpful. Leave me a comment down below if you have any questions, and I'd be happy to help. Thanks for watching.